All right, so a little video here. I just want to cover a couple of recent trades, how I entered them, how I took them, and just kind of discussing what's been going on lately with some of the smaller cap names that I've been trading, and kind of shying away from options. So first things first, we'll start with Rklb since this one's pretty much the easiest one to go through. So decent little setup here. We're kind of trading in the gutter as far as previous price action is concerned, but volume starting to pour in here. After a nice little kick off the bottom, you get what's basically an undercut and rally. So you're undercutting through all your SMAs there. You test below the 200, price doesn't want to stay. So it flicks back up over on earnings. You get a nice tight little range there and then continuation higher. I ended up missing this opportunity here because I just thought this needed to build out a little bit more. Didn't end up giving me that opportunity, and before I knew it, it had popped up above the ultimate range here. But what I did catch is later on when you've got this retest here, and this is where I think the retest is more important than any SMA action, and that ended up being true. So you get a nice deep pullback into the previous range here from December across, and a lot of people don't like the steepness of a move like this. They'd rather see this go sideways, and don't get me wrong, I think the sideways move is certainly better as far as like the expected move out of it. But from down here, you're given great risk reward. I basically entered on this inside day here, and you're given an inside day with fairly tight risk. If we go ahead and throw up the Furu special here, you can see you're risking low a day. So you're risking low a day on that inside, and you're targeting the top of this previous run, which gives you about an 11.5 risk reward for a PT1, and sure enough, you get a 3-day burst out of there and you're risk off. So now it's just a matter of managing this position. I'd like to see this build out a little bit more and then continue to push out. But again, that's a pretty straightforward one. Just buying a pullback into a previous resistance now turns support. Throw it in on an inside day, even if it's an outside inside. I think that's a great opportunity as well. But grabbed it on that inside day and risked the low and went from there. So that was one of them, more straightforward trade. Taking a look at Lunr, which is another one that I entered today actually, and this was an interesting one because I ended up missing the opportune entry, but was still able to get in with tight enough risk to justify the position. And you can see here, huge gap up on news. I want to say they got something in the ballpark of a $4 billion package. Up to a $4.5 billion package from the government for production of their goods. I want to say the first one was like 250 million. I could be wrong on that, but decent opportunity here right at the open. Kind of tapers off. You actually get a close below the opening range, which I don't like to see. So I ended up avoiding this entire action and through here. But later on, today especially, you do get a nice opportunity. So you come down and you test this area, and I don't usually trade with pre-market on, but this one had good volume, so it kind of justified. You had this range here. We end up testing that range today and popping over the DTL. And to me, you kind of have a sweet spot of entry here where not only your risk reward for the individual trade is best, but your risk reward and really just your probability of continuation changes drastically depending on where you are in the kind of turnaround spot. So here, your turnaround, you could try it over this line, or you could try it on like an SMA pop. But to me, this could have easily stayed down here for a while before popping out. We've seen that a number of times. So I wanted to wait for it to get up and away, let some volume start to kick in, and then find an opportunity. Watched it throughout the morning, watched it pop out, wanted to see this build out. It did build out. Ended up taking lunch though, and missed the move out and away, which was kind of a bummer. But was able to grab just above this kind of 840 spot. You can see we played around with this area previously. This is the open, and then also you get a lot of wicking through here on both sides. So I know that there's some contention here. Sure enough, we get a nice little flag underneath. I end up being patient with it. You let it slip one more time, grab that 10, hoping to see a close above. You didn't get the close above here, but came down, grabbed that 10, and then pushed back up. And then the next candle, usually I'd expect this to just be the push out bar. It ended up giving us a light volume breakout, close above. Grabbed it around 846. Really just wanted to see the close above this range here. Grabbed it there, and that gives a really nice risk reward as well. If we go ahead and throw this up here just for a visual sake, you're risking the bottom of this range, which basically puts you that's 834. I was risking about 839, just about. Let's see here. Yeah, I was risking about right in there. And to PT1 you're about a 13R. So, and just to the highs. Sorry, I didn't mean PT1. Just to the highs, which is a realistic PT1, you're 6 to 1R, which is pretty solid for an intraday. I ended up taking a little bit off on the slip of 920 because that was also a previous level. So as we slipped through here, I was able to take some of that risk off right about in there. You get a double inside to downside like this. You can see here, double inside to downside. Volume starts to come in, end up taking a little bit of that position off there as it slipped through because you just don't know with something that's only been active for a couple of days. So took a third off there, holding the rest through. I like this tight range above. It's pretty reminiscent of some IPO bases. I know it's completely unrelated, but I do like the look here. And if you go ahead and you go back at like the meta IPO, you can see something similar where you get a thrust up through the highs and then a pullback to the previous highs. This is all-time highs. In Lunr's case, it's just like a range high, but the structure is very similar. You also have that look on Kava IPO. You get a thrust up through on, not a whole lot of technical setup. You actually don't get much technical setup below the all-time high in this case, but you get a push up through, then a pullback in. And that's kind of what we're seeing on Lunr right now on much smaller frames. Again, I know this isn't an IPO base, but just the way that it looked, I thought was very similar. If you can notice the structure, kind of the tandem structures there. Couple other ones today. I took ASTS, and to be quite honest, this wasn't my best work. So I grabbed this over yesterday's high, which, for what it's worth, isn't one of my favorite opportunities. I'd rather trade it on some kind of a tight setup. And then, using maybe some SMA support or like a range support, which you're not really offered here. So I ended up grabbing this, through here. Around 2960. Didn't get anything off. I was expecting this to be the pop out. It wasn't the pop out, as you can see. And then, you get stopped out below. So kind of a tough one, but still kept risk quite tight, right? You're taking a setup that's got a phenomenal daily. Really, I think I gave this a little bit lower than the ideal would have been stop out below like 2950. Ended up giving it down into here like 2940. But on something that's got such a nice daily setup, you even get one, like some follow through into the end of the day and then a continuation move. Your 10 are pretty quickly on even a slight pop the next day. So I figured it was worth the risk to take it over the previous day's high. It ended up sneaking over it very briefly, wicking to the upside, and then just fading back down. And, that's unfortunate, but that's kind of the way it goes a lot of times with these riskier setups. I mean, here's a stock that's up 1,000% in a very short period of time. And that's just from the EP. If you pull this from the lows, you're up 1,800% from those lows. And while, yes, this is a tight setup here, probably just needs a little bit more time. And I'll probably try it again. We do have the 10 and 20 pointing down here as well, which some people are concerned about, and understandably so. So maybe this just needs a little bit more time to get that cross back over, and then a continuation move. Maybe got a little bit too excited there, but that's okay. Another nice one from recent is going to be Duolingo. So, this is pretty standard. You don't even need small frames to enter this one. This is just a classic daily break. So you've got a gap above, and I can go ahead and turn off SMAs because they weren't used on this trade either. But you can see here, you know, you got a nice tight range here from 212 up to 216, and a longer DTL. And this is a sloppy DTL, but you can see that there's some clear consistency with rejection along this line with one slight false break upwards. And I remember seeing this back before those earnings, and you hate to see that. You hate to see a nice setup going into earnings, kind of pre-run out of it, and then just get annihilated, because this would have been the makings of a really nice, I think, maybe not EP, but a real nice earnings gap and go. So anyways, pulls back in, sets up below this pivot, sets up below this DTL, punches through. You're basically, again, you're grabbing something like this. You're grabbing the move up above, and then you're risking a close down below. And I mean, just to the highs, you're talking a 14-1, or excuse me, a 14R trade there. So not so bad. Certainly a lot of opportunities recently. There have been so many names in the small mid area that are offering good setups. I mean, I'm not able to get them all, that's for sure. But yeah, like, let's see if I can pull up another one here. So Aplt, this one ended up kind of fading off into the end of the day, which I didn't like, and ended up just closing the position. But you know, this thing offered a pretty good spot as well. So you can see here, if I go ahead and I throw up the pre-market, and again, I really don't use pre-market much unless there's good volume to kind of support the idea. And you can see here, you've got a pretty nice pivot right around 6.8. So grabbing that opportunity above 6.8, basically risking the close below. You can see the volume pouring in right at the open, which is spectacular. I think, I haven't looked at this on a 1 minute for like a 1 minute orb type deal. But yeah, probably would have worked on a 1 minute orb as well. A little bit worse risk reward. But you know, you grab that over 6.8. and you're given a pretty solid entry. So I am a big fan of that type of move where you do have a nice pre-market range you can play like the punch out. You can see the volume just absolutely pouring in there. I mean, even in the pre-market, you're talking average volume of around 1K, jumps all the way up to 130K. So 130x average for the 5 minute, and then at that open, you're talking 170K, which is just monster volume for a stock of this size, and quite liked it. But then this close today, you know, I wanted to see the follow through, and we weren't able to get it, and that might have been a mistake. Don't get me wrong. I think this could hold, and maybe I jumped the gun here a little bit, but I just wanted to get some risk off the table. It's been a really hot couple of days, and I just didn't feel the reason, if I didn't like the look of something, or if I thought maybe this should have followed through and it didn't, I have no problem getting rid of it. And you know, if it keeps going, I'll find another entry somewhere in there. Last one to kind of go over though is going to be gold. I've outlined the thesis on gold a number of times, and I'm a huge fan of it. I've been trading this thing since October of last year. And really, I've been trading it for the last few years. I've tried a number of different entries on this for the bigger move, the bigger breakout here from 2011 all the way through. I mean, I think I've made 2020 was nice. Don't get me wrong, but I've made probably a dozen entry opportunities since then, and all of them have failed until they started to work out in March, which was great. And now we've got it kind of starting its move higher, in my opinion. If anybody was curious, I got it posted on my Twitter as well and a couple other places. But I think the environment that we're seeing now is very similar to what we saw in the late 70s, early 80s, as far as what's going on around the world, and then also domestically with our policy changes and the uncertainty right around election as well. So a big fan of it for that reason as well. If I go ahead and throw on some moving averages, you can kind of see why I entered through here. So you can see that this actually looked a little bit bearish. Okay. A lot of people were not a fan of this look, especially this gap down here. But quickly reclaims. You're able to tag. An entry on the pop above. And then you get a pullback and then a little bit of volume to keep it going. And now you're just kind of wide flag, breakout, tight flag, and now we're continuing out of that. So I think this has reacted pretty well to the Fed news. I am well protected on this trade. I have physical and I have some leverage applied. And yeah, I'm a big fan. But that's what I've got open on my book right now. As far as swings go, longs, I'll just quickly mention this. I mean, on cloud, not a great day today, but one of the positions long in the portfolio. I'm real happy with the performance here. I think Nike is kind of in shambles. They announced a new CEO coming in now, but I don't know if that's going to save them. People are really kind of turned off of their business. I'm seeing it all over the gym. When I ask guys who are, I'm noticing more people with on clouds, and when I ask them, oh, do you like those shoes? The result is pretty positively yes. And then, what shoes did you usually go with before? Heard a lot of Nike, Adidas. So we're seeing a big switch from Nike and Adidas into like Hoka and on cloud. So as far as a long going into this year, especially going into this holiday season, I'd expect there to be a pretty positive shift or further shift into on cloud. So yeah, that's about it. I don't know how long this video is, but just going over a couple of different things. Wanted to outline some of the trades of recent. And yeah, that's going to be it. I'll catch you guys later. See ya.